So we can compare, for example, companies from the IT sector with companies from the automotive sector. So particularly, we can compare an Apple with an BMW and say which of these companies is more productive to each other.
Welcome to today's Product Talk. My name is 𝗗𝗵𝗿. I'm responsible for equity index structuring at Solactive, and my guest today is Djordje Zivkovic from Averdas. Thanks a lot for joining us in Frankfurt today.
Thank you very much that I can be here today. My name is Djordje Zivkovic. I'm a senior researcher at the University of Liechtenstein and the University of St. Gallen, and I'm the investment officer at Averdas.
Djordje, what do you do exactly at Averdas? How would you describe your job?
I'm responsible for the investment approach and the investment process at Averdas for selecting the right companies for our joint Solactive Averdas Productivity Leaders Index.
Great. So you're the perfect counterparty for my questions today. Maybe already a first question. How does your way, as you are the investment expert, looking at companies differ from classic fundamental value growth factor models, for example?
Our approach differs in several ways. First of all, we have a holistic approach regarding the investment process. Unlike the traditional factors like value, growth, size, momentum, and so on, we look at several dimensions regarding the company. So we have an innovation dimension, a process dimension, a resilience dimension in which we assess companies regarding productivity. Second, traditional factor models base their assumptions often on linearity, but our algorithmic and mathematical approach also includes nonlinearities in our approach. So we can detect anomalies and also include these anomalies as our advantage in selecting companies. So we are maximizing output to input ratios across these dimensions, which I will have reflected on right now.
Okay. Perfect. And Djordje, I mean, we come from a very numeric job, a very numeric space, but maybe also describe to some of our viewers or listeners out there, if you have to describe without formulas, without numbers, how do you pick companies in the productivity landscape? What would you tell such an investor?
Thank you very much for this interesting but also challenging question, as we rely heavily on mathematical and quant approach, but I would like to try it as easily as possible. We try to maximize output to input ratios. What does this mean? This means that we pick and select companies which are able to maximize output based on certain inputs, or to select companies which have given input and maximize output. So companies which excel across these logic in innovation, process, and also resilience.
And do you have a specific company in mind or an example you could describe to us where this really shows that this is a company that excels in productivity?
Yes, sure. I mean, we cover some of the Magnificent Seven, but I think these companies are covered in a lot of different formats also. I would like to reflect on McKesson Corporation. McKesson Corporation is a leader in healthcare supply and has perfect numbers, or really excelling numbers regarding productivity in terms of innovation, process, and resilience. McKesson is able to optimize innovation output based on really low R&D expense. So it's a perfect fit for our indices, and it's also included in our two indices we have right now.
And maybe looking at the specific healthcare company you just mentioned, how resilient is your model, or how fast does it adapt to a new business cycle or disruptive technologies, with, especially in the healthcare space, can come up every day?
Exactly. We include a lot of different parameters in our model, also aligned to disruptive business models, also adapt to new emerging technologies. I would like to reflect shortly maybe also on work we are doing right now. We have an own developed software in which we include proprietary data based on scientific publications, and we try to also incorporate these elaborations also in our models to anticipate the future and also consider and take into account future development so that we further improve our model.
Very interesting insight. Thanks a lot, Djordje, for this. Looking a bit maybe also at the side of our collaboration and potential investors' interest, What regions or markets do you currently cover with your approach? Do you just cover a couple of large cap stocks in the US, or do you have a very broad view on the global equity space?
Currently, we cover different regions. We cover the US region, the European region, the global region. I mean, within our productivity indices, the Solactive's Averdas productivity leaders, we cover the US 1500 and the US 500. But our models can adapt to all market capitalization, so all sizes of companies. We can also adapt to different regions all around the world. And what is maybe also worthwhile to mention, that we can compare sectors with each other. So we can compare, for example, companies from the IT sector with companies from the automotive sector. So particularly we can compare an Apple with an BMW and say which of these companies is more productive to each other.
Thanks a lot. That's very valuable insights. That's also interesting for our viewers and listeners. Right now, we start with a first set of indices focusing on US exposure, US 500, US 1500. But in general, part of this collaboration, we also plan to expand it. And if you're interested in another universe or another market currently not covered, that's something we can definitely accommodate. The data is ready internally, but of course, we do not launch all the universes, everything at once.
That's great. I would like to incorporate with my partners, obviously, a lot of different universes with you. I mean, our collaboration up to now is really great, and I'm looking forward to also analyze and incorporate further indices all over the world, probably first focusing on US, but maybe then enlarging it to Asia, emerging markets, and so on.
How do you think, Djordje, how does the Solactive Averdas partnership matters in today's indexing and investment landscape?
I think this partnership matters a lot. First of all, I think the combination of scientific backed and research knowledge combined with your financial expertise, with your hands-on mentality, with your operative excellence is a great collaboration, in the sense that customers and investors can not only profit from great ideas, but also from investable ideas which we incorporate together with you. So maybe based on the logic from insight to impact, from insight regarding research-based development of factors to impact within the Solactive Averdas productivity indices.
Djordje, investment manager at Averdas, thanks a lot for joining us today in Frankfurt in our Solactive office. Some very interesting key takeaways for myself, I think also for our listeners and viewers, especially when looking at individual companies and how to pick them according to productivity metrics. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great to reflect on our approach on Averdas, and I'm looking forward to the further collaboration with you.